Welcome to today's Bitcoin 5 stories from the last 24 hours. Let's go. Bitcoin is sitting near $61,000. On the surface, that looks like another volatile week in Bitcoin. But underneath it, something larger is happening. Stocks, gold, silver and Bitcoin have all been hit together, a synchronized sell-off across assets that are not supposed to move in perfect lockstep. And the question is not just why Bitcoin fell, the question is, what is the market trying to make room for? Over the past 4 days, Bitcoin has held relatively steady. But over the past month, the picture is far more severe. According to today's price check, Bitcoin is down more than 24% from where it stood 4 weeks ago, now trading around the $61,000 level. At the same time, global markets have been hit by a broad sell-off. The S&P 500 fell sharply, the Nasdaq dropped harder, gold and silver were dragged lower as well. And in South Korea, the Kospi triggered circuit breakers after a steep fall, with trading temporarily halted as selling pressure accelerated. This was not just Bitcoin selling off, this was capital leaving multiple markets at once. And that is what makes the move important. Markets usually tell stories in fragments. Bitcoin falls and people blame crypto sentiment. Stocks fall and people blame earnings, rates or risk appetite. Gold falls and people blame liquidity. But when everything moves together, the story changes. It suggests that investors are not simply making a judgment about one asset, they are raising cash. And one explanation now dominating market discussion is the upcoming SpaceX IPO. SpaceX is preparing to list at a $1.77 trillion valuation, raising $75 billion with an unusually large retail allocation. That is not a normal IPO. That is a gravitational event. When a company of that size comes to market, investors do not just decide whether they like the stock. They decide what else they are willing to sell in order to own it. That is the pressure Bitcoin may be feeling now, not because its thesis has disappeared, but because liquidity is being pulled towards something new. The hidden angle is that this may not be simple panic, it may be positioning. The SpaceX IPO is unusual not only because of its scale, but because of what may happen after it lists. SpaceX could enter the Nasdaq 100 just 15 days after listing, forcing index funds to rebalance. That matters because index inclusion is not emotional. It is mechanical. If a stock enters a major index, passive funds tracking that index may need to buy it. And to buy it, they may need to trim something else. This is where the market becomes less like a voting machine and more like plumbing. Flows move, weights adjust, funds rebalance. Assets are sold, not because investors hate them, but because the system requires space. Bitcoin's weakness may therefore be telling us something uncomfortable. As Bitcoin becomes more integrated into the financial system, it becomes more exposed to the same liquidity cycles it was designed to escape. The question now is whether this rotation is temporary or whether it becomes something deeper. For Bitcoin, the key level is not just price, it is behavior. Do long-term holders absorb the selling? Do institutions treat the drawdown as a liquidity event? Or does the market begin to reprice Bitcoin as just another high beta asset in a world chasing the next great technology trade? There are also political and regulatory layers building in the background. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong has pushed back against banking sector criticism of Bitcoin and digital asset legislation as the fight over crypto rules continues in Washington. And beyond the United States, El Salvador has now reached 5 years since passing its Bitcoin law, with the country still holding thousands of Bitcoin as part of its national strategy. So Bitcoin is being pulled in 2 directions. In the short term, by liquidity. In the long term, by adoption. The real test will be which force matters more. Bitcoin was born as a response to a financial system built on leverage, liquidity and trust. But now it is trading inside that same system. That does not make the Bitcoin story weaker. It makes the next chapter more complicated, because the question is no longer whether Bitcoin can survive volatility. The question is whether it can remain distinct when the whole market starts moving as one. That's today's Bitcoin 5. Let me know your favourite story from today in the comments below, and subscribe now so tomorrow's update lands directly in your feed. I'll see you tomorrow.